Kristyn Stillwell is not only going to dazzle you with her knowledge, but she's also a regular attendee here. She's part of our group, and that's a big deal. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Kristyn Stillwell is the Executive Director of Hope Haven. Hope Haven is a 501c3 nonprofit in Houston, Texas. The mission of Hope Haven is to move people from crisis to lifelong self-sufficiency. Kristyn spent her corporate years working in the computer science field and then went on to direct sales and marketing jobs for many years. She has been working with homeless as a volunteer for over 20 years. These ministries have grown to over 1,000 volunteers a year and feed over 2,000 meals a year. Her passion is to educate the community on homelessness and inspire others who want to be the change they wish to see in the world. Please give a hand to Kristyn.
Well, I noticed someone that didn't get a chance to introduce himself, so I want to introduce him because he's here to support me. He thought he got off the hook. My husband back there, Mike. I always come home from these meetings and I tell him all the cool stuff I've learned about the local government. Is this not a great job that Larry does getting these people together? And Lori helping us make sure we're all nourished. and I want to say thank you to Beverly. Beverly is the one that supplied all the food today in HEB, and they are great. Thank you so much for being in our community. And Grand Marshal, right, of the St. Patrick's Day Parade for EMS. So that was really neat. Well, I am here today to share with you a little bit of my passion, which happens to be helping the homeless. It's not because I've ever been homeless. It's not because I've ever been addicted. And by the grace of God, I've never had to deal with any of those things or mental illness. But now it's my everyday life. And so my goal here today is to educate you about the homeless, about their lifestyles, and particularly the homeless in our area. Because I've spent almost 7 years now running around learning about the homeless. You're going to see lots of pictures today. They're all within 5 miles of here. Most of them, I think there's one that I'll point out that is not on 1960, but every other picture is right off of 1960 somewhere. So this is our backyard. So anybody ever seen a homeless person on 1960, right? Is this of an interest to you? Do you want to hear about this?
Yes.
All right, great. I'm also going to have a couple of shameless plugs in here, and one you'll see in a little bit, and I'll ask you maybe to send an email if you'd like. The other one is I am going to teach you what help is and what help isn't. So it's really important to me. This is kind of my soapbox, if you will. Don't give change, but be the change. And so it means exactly what it sounds like. I don't like it when people give money to panhandlers. And so if my clients see Larry's video, they're going to be upset with me. But that's okay, because they're usually upset with me anyway. Sometimes I'm their best friend, but sometimes they're not really happy with me. So you can go talk to a homeless person, say my name, and it'll depend on the day, whether or not they smile or whether they growl at you. So anyway, I am going to share with you a story. And it's a story about Jennifer. And if you live on 1960 or around 1960, you might have seen Jennifer. You'll see some front pictures of her in a minute. This picture came from the Houston Chronicle. Jennifer used to live behind the bank at Mains Road. Do you know where that is? Right, it used to be a bank, now I think it's a dental place, and it used to be out of business, and now it's an active business. This is actually right behind there, and the picture's done specifically in this direction, because if you turn the other direction, it's filthy. It's really nasty. And then sometimes her and Terry would go live in the woods that you see back there. And so I think I may even have a picture of one of the tents from back there. So anyway, Jennifer and I love that we're right where we are today, because Jennifer is off the street now. When I met her, she was living behind the bank. And when we get her off the street, we get her a team of new friends, right? We call them mentors. Spencer here is our mentoring chaplain. If you ever decide you want to mentor somebody, Spencer needs people. We have a brochure here to talk about our program. But when we give them a mentor, when they're off the street, we take them to dinner. And so Jennifer wanted to go to Carrabba's. Anybody know where that is? Right? Champion Forest in 1960 was the last place she went to eat with her dad while he was alive. And so we turned off of 1960 onto Champion Forest Drive. And she goes, oh, Kristyn, this is my favorite place in all of Houston. Isn't that where we are right now? So I looked at Jennifer and I said, I live off this street. Why is this your favorite place? And Jennifer said, because I make $40 an hour every time I work this corner. What are the implications of that? Anybody?
Get on the street corner.
Okay, no, absolutely not. These guys are going to be waiting at the corner. They're going to be waiting at the corner, right? Okay, so no, that's not the right implication. So what are the implications of $40 an hour working at the corner right here?
Panhandling.
Huh?
Panhandling.
Yeah, panhandling. Do you know that's tax-free?
Yep.
Can you imagine $40 an hour tax-free? Isn't that crazy? I always said it was because Jennifer was a female and because my community is very, very generous, right? It's a bunch of generous, kind, loving people that I live around. That's why I live here. And so the thing is, another one of my clients the other day, just recently, he comes and he works at our office. He can't work, but he comes and does some volunteer work, and we pay him with cigarettes. We do. We pay him with a pack of cigarettes so that he won't go work the corner. And one day he told Ray that I didn't get enough cigarettes. So I went to the corner and I worked a corner on another side of town where his apartment is, made $41 in 1 hour. This is a normal number. So I have a question for you. Why does that matter? It's not rhetorical.
High-paying job.
It's a high-paying job.
Keep doing it, keep doing it.
Yes, why not?
Why stop? Are there any rules?
No.
No. Do y'all want to know what Jennifer does or did with her $40 an hour? You want to know?
Yeah.
Vodka.
Wow.
Vodka. And then sometimes she would buy some cigars for her boyfriend or her husband. She calls him her husband. 20 years they've been living together. 7 years they were living together on the streets of Northwest Houston, right here. Living in the woods, drinking vodka all the time. So I want to tell her, we're going to get you off the street. You're going to have to follow the rules. You're going to do this. You're going to do that, right? See how hard that makes my job? So $1 here, $1 there is a tough thing. So, and she lives with no rules, right? So here's what the HUD secretary says about a homeless person. One homeless person, how much? $40,000 a year. Now, what do you think when you hear that number?
Why?
Why? I will tell you why.
Why?
Paycheck.
A paycheck. You know what I thought when I saw that number? Now, I've been doing this for about 6 years. When I saw that number, I thought, no way. That is way too high, right? Anybody thinking that right now? It's way too high. It's an inflated number. They're just doing it for their purposes. Well, I'll tell you what. When I started working with Jennifer, I began to understand that number so differently when I was just giving them a meal on a Saturday and helping one or two off the street here or there. With Jennifer, now what did I tell you she does with her money? Vodka. Jennifer has diabetes. There's problems with that, right? So Jennifer finds herself in our hospitals, because that's where they go for medical care, because they're non-paying customers in the hospitals, finds herself in the hospital almost every week. Once a month, it's usually a trip by an ambulance. Last year, when she was on the street, or no, 2 years ago, she had surgery, non-paying surgery. She actually had surgery again, but now she's a paying customer. We have her a gold card. But that's what happens when you drink vodka all day, you don't eat, and you're on the streets. You're in a really dirty environment, right? So she had to have the toes removed. So the other thing, and Lieutenant Henry with the Sheriff's Department that I've worked with puts a number of $1,000 is what it costs to take someone homeless from here to get them downtown, to get them booked, the cost of the paperwork that follows all of that, right? And Jennifer is mentally ill, so she would go to the psych unit. They would give her meds. Can you see how this adds up? So she makes her living panhandling, and she gets a ticket. Every 3 tickets, it's a warrant. It goes downtown. A warrant. The ticket's not paid for. It's a warrant. So you can see how these numbers add up. And I will tell you, I have a few clients that are not as much of a frequent flyer in the hospital or with the sheriff's department, but on the average, I would say that number is spot on. Isn't that crazy? And so I would tell you, when I started, we had over 250 people that were living between 249 and 45 in this area right here, between the Beltway and Spring Cypress, on any given night, sleeping in our streets. Think of the cost to our community.
What was that number again?
Huh?
What was that
About
number?
250 when I started. We have fewer now. I know yesterday I was on I was on 1960 yesterday 3 times, and I saw not one person panhandling. Praise God for you guys. Praise God for you guys. Right? I think that's important. I think that's good for business here. Okay, so here's a picture of what we did with Jennifer. We loaded her up in the van, and this is my public-private partnership with the Sheriff's Department. So we love the hot team. This is the hot van there. We load her up in the van, and we take her down to the DPS office. And for $11, we were able to get her an ID. That ID opened up everything for her. She can now get social services. We can now get her some medicine for her mental illness. It's one of the first things we do. We get them some medicine, or we get them into a psych hospital and let them diagnose them. And then we start working to get them off of their problems, whatever's causing them to stay on the streets. So $11. Now, she was making how much?
40.
This was not on her radar. Getting an ID, becoming legit, that wasn't any part of what she was going to do with her $40. Neither was eating, because they're given enough food. They don't spend their money on food. And so it was literally the booze and the cigarettes. And that's what I hear. I spend time, now I don't. I have a team that goes out on the streets more than I do. But I would spend time in the hospitals watching these people detox and holding their hand and just watching the misery they were going through. And every single time, they would tell me what they do with their money. And one little lady, Shay, who's about 10, 11 months sober now, she told me the first $11 of every day goes to her gallon of vodka and her $6 cigarettes. You know, it's hard. It's hard. So the most that an ID can ever cost me is about $35. If I have to get somebody's birth certificate, her mother is actually in her life. I was able to get her mom to go get the birth certificate for me and borrowed that, got the ID, went and brought the birth certificate back. But anyway, that started everything. And we say we're moving people from crisis to lifelong self-sufficiency. So for Jennifer, lifelong self-sufficiency is a permanent supportive housing. She will never be able to work. You know, she cannot hold a job down. And I have to say, she's been one of my toughest clients to get moved in, and she would tell you that. But Jennifer has mental illness so bad that she can't work. So we have to give her a reason to exist. And at Hope Haven, what we do from the first time we engage the people on the streets is we give them a reason. Listen, I need you to get better because I've never been on the streets. I've never been in addiction. But I need you to come help me get the other people when they'll trust you or they won't trust me. So I give them a reason to live. Now, I wish I could tell you a happy ending to Jennifer's story. She's still in her apartment. We're still a work in progress. But telling someone who's been making $40 an hour on the corner, you must now shop for $191 a month. You must eat what I tell you. Don't buy the drink that you're buying, right? And I want you to live this healthy, happy, productive life is a difficult task. So anyway, so that's where we've come with Jennifer. Now here's a tent. This is right off of 1960. This is a really nice clean tent, right? No? This is very normal of what we see. And as funny as my team was looking at our presentation, they said, well, that's not the one over there. We have one homeless guy who's OCD, and he'll come in and clean up the tents. You know when John's been around. He cleans them up. But this is very normal. This is what they look like. This is right off of 1960. This is how they live. So in the suburbs, it's very different than the homeless problem downtown. So if you drive near woods, and I'm sure these officers know how to do this, right? You can find out where their tents are by looking for a little break in the woods, and you follow that break and you can find their tents. And so we have groups of tents of 5 and 10 in some of these woods, lots of tents in there together, and they're kind of hiding, right? And so what do we do with this? What do we do about the problem? Any ideas?
Start with stop giving them tents.
Stop giving them tents, right?
And those are not inexpensive tents.
Oh, no,
Get
no.
them from somewhere.
We've got a couple that you'll see in a minute. I think they're on the next page. He's been asking, no, it's the next one. He's been asking, this guy right here has been asking me for a 10-man tent. That's great. No. Y'all recognize some of these people off our streets? You recognize them. She is actually eligible for housing right now. Right now we're just waiting on our wonderful government to pass a, right? They've got to pass their budget. And when they pass their budget, then they're going to start giving the vouchers again. And we've got about 3 of our clients that are ready, been approved, and ready to get their vouchers. And so that's what we do at Hope Haven. We go and we try to help them move through the steps of getting better. Now, there's housing available for these people, okay? Vets, there's housing available for them. Why would you think if there's housing available that these people aren't taking advantage of it? Huh?
The rules.
Rules, right? Why do that when I can make $40 an hour? Do you know people come to our community? Why are y'all in our community? Because it's safer, right? It's less violence, good neighbors, kind people. It's the same reason they're here. It's the same reason they're here. There's more violence downtown. There's more people downtown. There's more homeless downtown. They can sleep here and feel safer, just like we do. So they're here for the same reasons we're here.
Kristyn, does the fact that they have bus routes out here, does that entice them to come here because they could come on the bus?
You know, then I see Karen weakly shaking her head. Not really. You know, it's really funny. So we do what we call a point-in-time count. We do an inventory every year of homeless people so that we can get the millions of dollars, and I think last year was about $36 million that Houston got, something like that, to do housing, these housing vouchers that we're waiting for. To do that, we must do an inventory of the homeless people. And so we do, in Houston, we do it different than around the country. We do a 3-day count. And really funny, you should ask that question. I did my count downtown. Then we came out here and my team fought to get 1960. We didn't get 1960 last year and we knew where all the camps were. So we got 1960. But we also went out to Humble. In my second year in a row, I worked with the Sheriff's Department last year. And we got Humble too. Do you know, in Humble, we didn't find any homeless people on the bus routes. Isn't that an interesting fact? Wonder why? I don't know. I don't have the answer for that. But I don't think the bus routes are the whole of it. Because you find homeless people off Luetta, right? I've seen them near my neighborhood, and there's no bus route there. So they're mobile anyway. You'll find them up in Waller, you'll find them in other places where there's no bus route. But the bus route does make them mobile. It does let people come in to Panhandle here. And people downtown know that this area of town pays more money. So anyway, I think I've beaten that one into the ground, right? So anyway, here's another camp. And this is one I said that is not in our neighborhood. Okay, this is just about 4 miles down the road. So what do you think of that? Pretty nice, huh? Do you know this camp has electricity? It does. It does. And they have bicycles in the front. They're repairing bicycles. I hope they're purchasing them and then selling them. In the back, where they have electricity, they're repairing televisions. The guy that set this camp up was an electrician. Isn't that interesting? When I'm showing this to the little kids, I love to go in the church. Look at Sasha's face. When I go into the churches, I tell the little kids, this is a cul-de-sac. So I'm trying to give them some parallels to where they live and things. And so I call this a cul-de-sac. And then one of my team guys says, look at that. It's a lazy boy in the woods. Is that an oxymoron or what? Right? So the thing is, he no more owns those woods than anything. He no more owns that land, but he's made himself pretty darn comfortable. And they're surviving in our community off of this. Now, I have to tell you, the camp doesn't look like that, and I keep threatening to come back and take pictures, and I just haven't. On a Saturday, for whatever reason, when I've gone out there, the few times I've gone out, I haven't done that. But this camp was built by this guy right here. His name's Ronnie. Ronnie's the electrician. called his little camp the Blues Town. He's a singer. He kind of had the hots for one of the people on our Saturday feeding teams, and he'd write her music, and he'd play it for her on Saturdays when they come out. And so he was very comfortable there, right? Kind of made his little stake. It's truly waterfront property. There's a little gully right by him. And so, but what happened was, when we had our storms come in, it brought the snakes into their camp, made it a little uncomfortable. So they probably slept behind the buildings for a little while. Snakes left, and then another group of people came in and started squatting on their camp, and then they did some heavy drugs, and then they did some heavy fighting, and finally this guy had had enough of having enough, and he chooses to go stop drinking so much so he could live with his brother, who's in our area. He had to hit rock bottom. And so I've been doing this for about 6.5 years. In the first 5 years, we got about 70 people off the street, one by one, on the side of my full-time job. In the first year that Hope Haven existed, thank you, Sheriff's Department, because I had a great team to help me. They kept me safe for the first time, crawling under the bridges and out back in the woods. I was safe. We had 93 people off the street in our first year in some sort of transition. Isn't that cool? That's great. Personally, I think it's a testament to the God that we serve. He can use anybody for his purposes. And so here's the thing. We were able to get that many people off the street. Right now, if you count the whole 6.5 years, we're at about 200 people off the street. We're at about 130 at Hope Haven right now. And success for them is all kinds of different things. Each person has their own path to success. And, here's a picture from our community. What do y'all think of that picture? Do you think he's hit rock bottom yet? Mm-hmm. It's a little blurry because I wanted to get it before we woke him up. And you see the hot van in the background, right? I said, pull up, I want to take a picture of this. What do you think about the sign above the guy?
What does it say?
For lease. Is there an impact of having him in our community? Sure. What is that? For a businessman in the room, what does this do?
I'm not going to rent there.
You're not going to rent there, right? So, kind of a deterrent. And this is on 1960. And so, let me tell you what we're doing across the country to house these people is we're using a program called Housing First. It's a great initiative, and it gets people off our streets. Let me tell you what it involves. Housing First is take someone off the corner of the street, out in front of the building, and put them in an apartment. There's a problem with that. Anybody have a problem with that? No more panhandling, right?
What's to incentivize they're going to stay in the apartment, right?
Well, they like having showers. They like having air conditioning and heat.
We haven't taught them to fish.
Huh? You haven't taught them to fish. Okay, you saw the sign a minute ago. Other way. You saw the sign a minute ago. Let me see. This one right here. This is where everything changed for me. I saw these signs all over our community. And I felt like I was supposed to do something. Right? And I didn't know what to do. So 6.5 years ago, I started feeding. Right? And actually, goodness, we started that a long time before that. We started probably in 2010, maybe 2008 actually. And I fed a man one day at Spring Cypress in 249, and it was Thanksgiving, and I did what I now call drive-by feedings. I threw a plate of food at this guy. And he looked at me and he said, "God bless you." I got in the car and I'm upset. And Mike looks over at me and says, "What's wrong? What did he say to you?" Sometimes he'll be mean. And he said, "God bless you." And he said, "What's wrong?" 2 years ago, I fed the same man in the same spot at 249 in Spring Cypress. And I said, I don't know his name, and I didn't make a difference in his life. I can feed him a fish, but I got to have a relationship with this guy so that I can teach him to fish. And that's where my world really changed. And what we did is we started partnering with churches in the area. And we grew that. We had 4 families that started. We grew it from 4 families to 4 churches. Right now, we're at about 9 churches that partner. They feed 1 day a week. We feed a meal 1 day a week. Why don't we do it 7 days a week? I don't want them to be comfortable. I use that meal, and for business people in the room, I use it as a hook. It's my excuse. My team hated it when I first started. I said, it's our hook. Right? It's my excuse to be there to build a relationship with these people. And so what would happen is we'd go out once or twice, and we would give them a meal, right? And then when we started going out every single Saturday, they began to trust us. So they're not comfortable during the week. There is no place to eat here in Northwest Houston, 5 days a week, 7 days a week. Downtown, you can get 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, but not out here. And I'm okay with that. Let's build a relationship with them. When we first started, they asked for shoes, they asked for socks, they asked for blue jeans. But once they got going and they saw that we were really going to be there for them, they started asking for the big things. They started asking us for help with their mental illness. They started asking us for reconnecting with family. Can you help me with an ID? I'd like to go back to work. Can you help me with this drug or alcohol problem? And so that happened about 2 months into feeding. And that's where we were able to, one by one, on the side of our jobs, it took 3 people to take 1 person downtown. There's no services out here for them to get all those kind of things. We take 1 person at a time, and we got 70 people off the street in 5 years. And then in the last year and a half, 130 people. Because I quit my job to do this full time. So anyway, so any questions about that? This is what we consider success. Some people can go back to work. Praise God. They can become contributing members of our society. That is our goal. Move into apartments, get jobs. Many of them have to go through these steps. We've got one guy that this May will be 5 years sober. He's my poster child, right? And I can call him child because he calls me mom. He's 50 years old and calls me mom. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, going back to your example of Jennifer and then the other information you've given.
Yes.
Is the housing, and I'm not in any way saying it should be, is the housing tied to a job? In other words, to the goal of getting one. Clearly you have someone like her where you've said, I get it, it's a process, and for some of these people, surely the process never leads to regular employment because they are damaged one way or the other, that they are unable to do this.
Correct.
So what happens with the housing with the very damaged? And is the overall goal, and I'm also curious, is the higher percentage that you work with in people that can process themselves to some kind of work, and you all providing some sort of roof over their head, or is it never tied? Is the roof over the head never tied or incentivized to work?
So truly, let me see, there were a lot of pieces of that question, so catch me if I miss one of them. So in Jennifer's case, it is not tied to work. It is truly tied to, she's chronically homeless is the term that we put on that, right, Karen?
Right.
She's chronically homeless and she has a mental illness, so she can be chronically homeless. She has a disability. In the case where they have a disability and they're chronically homeless, we put them in what we call permanent supportive housing. So literally the apartment you saw Jennifer in is paid for life.
Kristyn, to add
Yes.
to that, she would also be connected with services like mental health services.
Right, and I'm gonna go
doctor's
there.
appointments.
I'm gonna go
Those
there.
are Just so that you don't think they're just in there
Oh,
with
no, I get it.
Yeah.
objective.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna
Her
talk about that.
disability
Right.
sort of answers my question.
Right.
I said that if it's treated as a disability, the disability then opens the door to other
services.
Resources,
And-
right.
which makes sense.
Absolutely. And so like in Jennifer's case, here's the thing though. Those caseworkers that we have them assigned to,
Right.
we use HUD housing, okay? And I'm straight up, I love HUD housing. They pay to house a lot of my people. But there are some rules with HUD housing. Right now, we cannot mandate sobriety. We cannot mandate that they stay on their mental health meds. I don't know if you happen to notice a little cross in our logo. We can't preach Jesus. I get it. It's a government thing. I get it, and it works. All right? But the problem is when you take someone off the corner of the street and you haven't taught them to fish, or you haven't taught them to walk life better. So at Hope Haven, we kind of do things a little different. We're the little rebels. of the group, we want them to get on the path to sobriety. We want them on the path to success. We mandate for us to work with you, you must stay on your mental health meds. Doesn't mean we can't taper them off later, right? And there are some people that need to get on mental health meds. We've got one guy diagnosed really highly schizophrenic, but I tell you, we kind of think it might be the crystal meth that he's on. And when he got off the crystal meth for about 2 or 3 months, he quit doing his conspiracy theory thing, right? And I love that guy. You're gonna see his picture in a minute. I love him. He's one of my favorite homeless people. His demeanor and his spirit is incredible when he's not using. And so with him, he can go to work and he does want to work, but we got to get him stable first. So mental health comes first, then we get them into rehab. And then somewhere in that process, we get them assessed for housing so that when he gets out of the rehab, the housing will hit. And the expectation for him is that he will go to work. Men love to work, right? Men feel good when they're working and providing. It's just the way you guys are wired. I try to provide for my husband. Anyway, he loves me. So success is different for every person, but they don't mandate any of those things to get the housing. But for Hope Haven, we set a plan of success, what it looks like for each person before they get started with us. We ask them to sign an empowerment contract. Listen, we're in 150%. We need you to be in the same. And when they back off, I have to be honest, Miss Jennifer, I'm not spending much time with Jennifer these days because Jennifer's not following our rules. For a long time, Jennifer wouldn't follow the rules of the apartment complex and she was this close to losing permanent supportive housing. Now imagine if you never had to pay rent for the rest of your life. What would you do? Right? Well, you know why that didn't matter to Jennifer? She never paid rent before. She didn't get the value in that.
Yeah, it doesn't compute.
It doesn't compute. So we have to teach it. So we do life skills training on the back end. We have services that we plug them into. We have a hope, right, Chip,
Yes,
of some
ma'am.
services here for people that are on the verge of homelessness. Let's stop this thing before it happens. And one of the statistics I heard was 2 weeks on the street causes mental illness. I think mine will be one night. But that's what I've heard. And 90%, to give you numbers, I would say 95% of our people on the streets have some kind of mental illness, and they're self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, right, guys? They're not in a good place usually. You ever arrested a homeless guy for public intox? Never? Huh? All the time, right? So this is what we do at Hope Haven. This is what we see as a path to success. This is hard. You know, when Jennifer moved in, she didn't know how to ride the bus without Terry, her boyfriend of 20 years. We had Terry in rehab. So I dropped a couple of guys off at her apartment. We let them walk to the bus stop from the apartment. We drive them back to the apartment, let them walk to the bus stop again, right? Let them take the bus to where she needs to go. Then I pick the team up, take them back, teaching her how to ride the bus. When Jennifer blew her first $191 of food stamps in 2 weeks on the food truck that came to her apartment and sold Coca-Colas for $8 a six-pack, right? This is great. So here's what I did. I took her down to the food pantries around. Well, I don't like that. I don't like that. It's food. You got to the end of the month. You got 3 weeks. It's food. So she got what she got, and I said it'll sustain you. I happen to know beans and rice are the cheapest thing in the store, right? Anybody that's ever had tough times, you know that. And so I was trying to teach her, you get what you get. If you'll save your money and ration it right for the next month, I went and I helped her grocery shop. Food truck came along. I made her promise me she wouldn't use it. She used food truck again. She was out in 2 weeks. So I took her to a different food pantry. She got 4 bags of groceries, right? That's what we get at NAM. 4 bags of groceries. She didn't like it. Wasn't what she wanted. I want milk, I want meat, I want this, I want that. Yes, ma'am.
Who's the food truck?
I don't know. It's not right. And taking advantage. It's people taking advantage because Jennifer doesn't like to walk. Her foot hurts. So into her poor apartment complex comes a food truck that receives food stamps, right? And sells Cokes for $8 a six-pack, and she likes Cokes.
Well, wouldn't that, I guess it's not illegal
It's wrong. It doesn't work in my book. But here's the thing. So Jennifer, I told you her mother was still in her life, right? So when I wouldn't take her and get her groceries that she wanted, I wouldn't get her milk, I wouldn't get her. Now if she would do things I asked her to do, I'd reward her with a gallon of milk. Okay, Jennifer, let's go do this. We can have this, right? And so here's the thing. She called her mom and she cried and complained until her mom went grocery shopping for her. So my next phone call is to the mom. Her mom had like 5 kids, and I said, did you know that beans and rice are the cheapest thing in the store? And she said, sure, I had 5 kids. I said, that's the lesson I need to teach Jennifer. Don't take her grocery shopping if she cries. So I tell you those stories. We're all in. We're willing to help these people and go the extra mile if they're willing to do their part. And there's services out there they can get. So we can't mandate, that they go get a job. But with the men that I'm working with, they want a job. And so they're willing to take those steps. But the thing that has to happen for every one of them is they have to hit rock bottom. And as long as our community is giving them money, as long as we're giving them tents, right? We're making them comfortable, they're not going to hit rock bottom. So we wait till they get arrested. One of my guys I've been working with for almost 5 years got arrested. He drove a friend's car, and the friend's car, he claimed that the car wasn't allowed to, and I guess that's it's a felony, right? He stole somebody's car. So we met him at the jail before he got out, the week before he got out, and I was able to take him straight from the jail to the transitional living, and he never went back to the streets. We got him housed, and things are good, but he's in one of these housing first complexes. Now remember, we haven't taught him to fish. So what happens if they're struggling in addiction on the corner of the street, and we put them into an apartment?
You go back out, yeah.
They go back out to the street, they still use. They may stay in the apartment, they're still using.
You have to teach them to fish a different way.
Teach them to fish a
They know
different
how to
way.
fish. They've been here all this life.
They're good. They're good. And especially if they're an addict, man, they can manipulate. So think about this. Everybody on the street has a mother, a brother, a sister, a child, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle. Now, think about your family. What would your family member have to do to let you not open the door for them to come sleep in your house? That'd be kind of bad, right? I love my kids. I'd have to do a whole lot. But these people, they've done that. So they're masters at this game. And they do know how to fish. Boy, can they manipulate. So be very careful. And so, but great question. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Sufficiently? Okay. So we have to look for new solutions to the problem. Here's my shameless plug. Don't give them money. If you hear nothing else today, you can give them a kind word. Ask them their name. Make them feel important, right? Because in the essence of who we all want to feel like we matter. And people are averting their eyes to them. If you want, I was going to bring one, I forgot. In my car, I have little bags. We call them manna bags, little, a water, tissues, cleaning cloths, things like that. Soft, chewy granola bars, things like that. Keep water in your car. Offer them a bottle of water. Offer them, our business card. Tell them there's places they can get help. Send them to NAM, right? We're there to help, but just don't give them money. If you would like to go out, this is our group feeding on a Sunday. If you'd like to go out, Beverly took her leadership team from HEB. She took her leadership team from HEB out on the streets, and they came and they saw this stuff firsthand. She said they had a good time. We go out from 2 or 3 different churches right here in our community every single Saturday. If you show up at the place where we do early voting at Champion Forest, they go out every single Saturday from that building where you vote. They leave between 10:30 and 11 o'clock. So just show up and you can go. You'll get an eye-opener. They'll feed a home-cooked meal. They'll love them. And then we just wait for them to get ready. But there are services. Here's the hot team. We took Zachary. We found him at St. Ignatius Church charging his phone. And we took Zachary in. This is at the Open Door Mission. There are places for these people to go when they're ready. And this is the new idea in policing. This is our hot team. So they're out there engaging. They had a lot of work to do because the homeless people out there were scared because every time they see a badge, they see they're going to arrest me, they're going to take me to jail, or they're going to write me a ticket, or they're going to tell me to move. So these guys had to go and build bridges, and I took my relationship and I would tell the homeless people, look, you can trust these guys. These are here to help you. Keep their card so when you're ready, you can get help. Here's our group feeding. We feed in 2 languages. Every Saturday we go out in English and Spanish from Champion Forest Baptist Church. And so we need both, and this young lady there lives off of veterans. Here is our greatest need. We need volunteers to help with our mentoring program. I say I get 93 people off the street. 40 some odd of those are still in the area, and each of them need 3 new friends. So we assign 3 new friends to every person that comes off the street. It's their accountability group. It's their buddy. It's not their meal ticket. It's not their ride. It's somebody that holds them accountable and touches them at least once a week through a phone call or a text message. Okay, my second shameless plug. Right, Chip?
Yes, ma'am. Do it.
All right. Does anybody know where this building is? 4702, right, Larry? 4702, 1960. Been abandoned 8 years? Y'all know where that is? Next to Victor's Deli? Yeah. So here's the deal. I pitched the owners of this building and I asked them for it to give it to us. They want to do something good with the building. And David helped me with quick copy. We put together a really pretty package for them with their names on it. And so we asked them to deed the building over to us, and they were talking, they're thinking about it. So put it on your prayer list. If you really want to do something, send an email to Zenith Real Estate. Tell them they should give the building to Hope Haven. What we want to do in this building is we want to do life skills training. This is not for our homeless people to reside. All right, this is a place for our people in our community that are on the verge of homelessness to stop it. This is where they can get the skills and the training, the job skills, the finance skills, the medical help that they can't afford will all be inside this building in the front half. The back half, how about officers? What if we had a sobering center on our side of town? Would you guys like that? Steve told me he wanted one. A sobering center where they can drop off, and that's not for homeless. Our homeless people use a sobering center, but the community uses a sobering center. We'll save our constable's office, our sheriff's department quite a bit of money and time if they don't have to drive downtown. We're looking at a detox facility, and we're looking at a respite care facility. That's what we want to do with that building. That's our hope and our desire. It was dropped in our lap in Conroe, Texas, right, guys? So anyway, this is our plug. If you want to talk to Zenith Real Estate, to the 2 owners of that, I asked them for it. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, here, this is one of those families that would help in that center. This family has been living in the in-town suites right here on 1960. Those little boys are now 8. They've been there since those boys were 3. And this guy needs to be on disability, but he hasn't done what we've asked him to do to get on disability. We do now have a family that's helping them, and he might do it now. But the thing is, he lives in the in-town suites. It's $1,300 a month. You know where he gets that money? He's not on disability.
Street.
Right. Anyway, so our future vision is we would love a place to transition families. Right now in Houston, Texas, if we took that family and we tried to transition them, we'd split the daddy off from the mom. And now that the boys are 8, when they turn 9, we'd have to split the boys off from the mom.
Wow.
Houston, Texas, 4th largest city. We'd have to split them up.
Is there a reason why?
Huh?
Is there a reason why you split the families up?
We don't have any transitional facilities with bathrooms inside the rooms. So boys over the age of 9, girls over age of 13 can't stick with the families.
Okay.
So we have to separate them. So I would love to see a little tiny house village with bathrooms in the tiny houses, right? Or an apartment complex would work, things like that. So this is my favorite homeless guy I was telling you about. I love this guy. His name is John. And they tell me at the office I pimp him out. His sign says whatever I need it to say. Sometimes it tells you to go to my website. So anyway, any questions? I've shared a lot of information. Yes, sir.
Where does the money come from?
Where does the money come from? Okay, so we have a cross in our logo, so I can't take government funds. We are supported by private businesses, we're supported by churches, and we're supported by individuals. Yeah, we're a 501c3. But here's the thing, guys. We started this with $0. When we started, I had a heart for doing this, and I felt like God was asking me to do it. I didn't know what to do with that, but I knew if I didn't go do what God was calling me to do, I was going to end up in the belly of a well. And I really didn't want to do that, right? And so with no money on the table and a church that said they would support me, I said, let's do this. Our first year in 2015, when we got our 501c3, we did this with $4,000. By the grace of God, last year we had $40,000, $42,000. So this year, if that building happens, our budget is $8 million. But you know what? The thing is, God will provide if this is what he wants to do in our community. He'll provide the building. The building will open some doors. I told the owners of that building it's a game changer for our community, and it's a game changer for us. So, great question, Larry. Yes, ma'am.
I think everybody in here commends what you do, and I think it's a great program. I do have to take issue with that building now, because we live behind that building, that and the motel, and it's been a nightmare.
Yes.
And we've had numerous problems, both in our neighborhood in this area, with
Yes.
homeless and some threatening situations.
Yes.
So that's not something we're really supportive in, having everybody congregate right there. So how would you address that? Because, like I said, I think you do need a facility and everything.
I agree with you.
I can tell you there's people are furious with
Yes.
with the crime rate in this area and things that are changing and the homeless. I mean, it's kind of gotten out of control, and we've seen a massive change.
Yes.
Every day we've got helicopters, every day we have a manhunt. We have lockdowns in our neighborhood for the murderers,
I'm with you. I'm
And-
totally with you. This is why, I don't mean to cut you off, but this is why I don't want that building to be a homeless shelter. I don't want it to be a community center for the homeless. It is not to serve the homeless people. This is to serve the people that are off the street. This is the preventative. This is to have classes, training, medical, give them access to some things that the poorer people in our community don't have. The people living in that building, guys, I've walked to the building with the sheriff's department. Thank you for their safety. I wouldn't have gone in there otherwise, right? We've gone in there to pull out keys to a riding lawnmower that was stolen because the people were living in the building that were stealing things. You walk through the building. I don't know if Mr. Turner's have been through that building yet, but there's all these little dime bags of drugs. They're there. There's evidence of all kinds of bad things going on. The first time I was ever called the building, there was a potential rape that happened in the building. Bad stuff happened in that building. So the people are in our community already. We need them out of the building. And so to get them out of the building, we need something good in the building. So that life skills, there is nothing that can service a homeless person on the street in that building except for the medical detox, where they would be in a bed upstairs. And you have to be brought in through an organization. You can't just walk in off the street and go to detox. So there's no reason for anybody to be hanging out outside. That's a call to the sheriff's department. Remove them. Yes, sir.
And may I suggest that because of our wonderful county attorney's office, the two motels, both the Champions Lodge and the North Gate Inn, were sued by, working with the sheriffs, the constable,
Yes.
and the county attorney. There is no more crime of significance in either of those. By having that building where, again, it's giving people an out from homelessness. If there was any kind of problem, we have the resources working as a team. I don't think there's any other community that has this much teamwork.
Right.
From all of our law enforcement and our county attorney and our DA, they're coming next month. By working with them closely, that kind of a fear can be cut down dramatically.
And truly putting good to use in that building. If we own the building, if there is somebody, a vagrant sleeping outside the building, we just do like any other building owner, right? If there's somebody outside a Quick Copy that's sleeping in your parking lot, what are you going to do?
Make a phone call.
Make a phone call, right? And that's what we would have the ability to do. So those bad people that are living in that building doing really bad things, they'll have to move out because we're doing good things in there. There's no room for that, right? Isn't that what you do, Karen, at NAM? If you've got the wrong kind of people hanging out in front of your building, you get them away. So absolutely. I think there was a question over here. Yes, ma'am.
How many families do you come across, like with
That's a great question. Okay, so when there's families with kids living on the street, we jump into action. I don't like the family living in a hotel, but there's nothing we can do about that except to give them resources to help them. But if there are families with kids, we go into action. And if they're sleeping on the streets, the first thing I say is, look, if the wrong person drives by, CPS is called and you lose those children. Let me show you what the resources are and let's find a place for you. So we immediately, before the next night happens, get them somewhere. My husband and I at 7 o'clock at night have been known to pick people up and drive them to Conroe, to the Salvation Army, because it's the only place that has shelter that will let the daddy and the mom stay under the same roof in different areas and keep the kids with them. So we do something. We've had adoptions happen off the street. We had a family that was living in a car with the back windshield busted out. And she had 3 children. When she got out of the car, she was as pregnant as she could be. It's the first time I ever had a licensed chemical dependency counselor with me. And she's like, Kristyn. I said, what? And she said, Mommy's an addict. I thought, no, Mommy's pregnant. And so we came alongside them. They'd been illegally evicted. We helped them get back into their apartment, armed them with some information, and then surrounded that family and tried to help. Mommy did not ever accept our help, never admitted to the addiction, not even when the baby was born, addicted to opiates. CPS gets involved. They had a family they were going to do a placement with. You gotta love my husband. That family in Greenspoint did not pass the background check. So I get the call at 10:30 at night. Will you take my 4 kids? Right? You gotta love a man. So he and I drove and bought a car seat, picked up the kids, brought them home, and I'm looking at my family like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but we'll have the kids somewhere. So we do not allow kids on the street. That is just, we need to do something.
Do you have a lot?
No.
Is that a lot? Okay.
Very, very, very rare. In fact, that morning, it was Thanksgiving of, Thanksgiving of 2011, right? So the little baby, we call her our practice grandbaby. We ended up having her for about a month before she was adopted. And she's 5 now. And so I was going to say, you asked if I had a lot of people. In fact, here's what our homeless people said that day. We all prayed out. We pray at each of our stops. We love on them. We feed them. And then when this family came up and all the little kids, I turned to the homeless guy I was talking to and I said, wait a minute, I think I need to go see what that is. And he said, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. You can't have kids out here. I make this choice. You know, so even the homeless people were upset when they saw children. I get calls. They all have my phone number, so I get calls 24/7. But I get calls when they find out we had 2 14-year-olds living in that building, and actually 3 14-year-olds, and they had all run away from their foster homes. But the homeless people were calling me, telling me there were 14-year-olds on the street. So we do whatever we can to get the children off the street quickly. And the homeless people are a good resource now because they talk and they'll rat each other out. All right, yes, sir.
What type of regulations or pushback do you guys commonly come in contact with?
Okay, so that's good. Well, I had some person tell me on the phone the other day that I shouldn't have my number at 211, which I didn't give my number to 211 because I don't have housing. But we are truly, I'm not under any regulation. I'm not a licensed anything. So I do this out of the goodness of my heart. My team is not licensed. But here's the thing, feeding, it's a real big deal. We cannot feed inside the city limits of Houston more than 5 people in a place. Our biggest stop is in Spring, and it's outside of Houston, the city of Houston. So where we feed sometimes up to 50 Hispanic guys, we're outside that regulation. So we really kind of skirt under anything that there is. We try to help, but we don't make any promises. So when we hire licensed caseworkers and licensed social workers and things like that, we'll have more regulations that we have to go through because they have obligations through their licensing. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just to further answer the question about the building and the people coming in, with the installation of the sobering center will allow for a lot of traffic from the police officers, so there'll be a high law enforcement presence at the site.
That's true.
Just from the sobering center being there, so that it'll cut back on a lot of the non-wanted
Yes.
people.
And we'll have 24 security too.
Yeah,
24/7
just that,
security.
I see very little almost no presence of law enforcement on 1960, okay? And I know that there's a huge area, okay?
Right.
But it's not like you just, I mean, I did see them on the way here this morning, but in the strip center, but it's rare that you see that. And, you know, I even spoke to a gentleman at a strip center right near there who said he's had no luck. Now, that probably means no permanent luck. In other words, the police come and they say you have to leave the property, and then it's just ongoing. Because I know they don't ignore it, but he's got people camping out in his strip center, and I just tell you, it's a nightmare for residents in this area.
Absolutely,
You know?
absolutely.
I mean, we recently had another murder across the street. I don't know if they ever found the perpetrator, but, you know, we don't know that it's not from that community. I know a lot of businesses have had known homeless that have come in, like I said, you know, exhibited very threatening behavior. And, you know, you have some people that say, oh, these are nice people. Well, it doesn't matter. It just takes a few to be threatening or an endangerment, you know,
Sure.
for people to be concerned, you know. And
Well, if people are using drugs, they're bringing, there's going to be other bad consequences around that. And if they're using or they're under the influence of alcohol, there's all kinds of bad things. I have to say, with the sheriff's department, the constable's office, I see them everywhere. Michael saw them because Michael got a ticket. But, you know, I was actually in the hot van one day and someone was weaving in and out of the traffic on 1960, right, in his little motorcycle. And he pulled past us, and the guys turned the siren on, and he stopped, right? And so when that light turned green, he shot a little hand signal out, and he drove down the road as fast as he could. Those guys were on the radio, and I will tell you, this was at 1960 in Veterans, where he ran the light. And they made the call right there. Before they got to Kirkendall, there were 4 units there. They're around.
oh, I know they're around.
Yeah.
The thing is, and I know they're overwhelmed. There's no question. It's not a criticism. I'm just saying, you don't see them just frequently on 1960. I rarely see one. You know, like I said, they're busy doing, you know, running calls. There's no question.
Yeah.
But it's not like, you know, sometimes you would like them just to be there and have a presence. And I know that's not feasible, you know, with their work, with their load and everything. But it is difficult when you have this, and that's not their priority, and we understand it. You know, these homeless people are not, you know, their primary concern, nor should they be necessarily, but it is for those living in the area, you know. And I just know the comments about the homeless in the area, you know, you get on next door, and boy, you start something massive.
Right.
One note that you might like to know is that no trespass orders
Yes.
are necessary for them to work the property after hours.
Yes.
Now, on the one hand, you have the people who are the businesses who call the police because someone's there. That's one thing. But once the property is after hours, the businesses are closed, the police can only go on the property if a no trespass order has been filed with our police. And sometimes they don't want to. First of all, some of the owners are in other states. They don't want to cooperate. So one of the questions you want to ask is if they know that no trespass orders have been signed and notarized. I have copies, or police have copies, and that's necessary for them to go without being called
And that's filed.
with the police. When I ride with one of the deputies, when they pull up the file, that order is scanned in as there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that
And
helps.
it's usually kept in our gift bank center.
Right.
But you're also looking at an abandoned building right now versus one that'll be occupied.
Right.
Big
Right.
difference.
Big difference. Big difference. There were.
I'd rather have an occupied building by you than an empty building that everybody
Amen.
knows they're gonna go
Yeah.
to. Because those people won't be allowed there. They're allowed there now.
Oh, yeah, that
Right,
makes it worse.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So I think it's a positive all over.
I think it would be great.
Yeah.
And, you know, I did ask the sheriff's department and the constable's office, there were 51 calls to this building from January of 2016 until last week. Think about that, 51 calls of service,
Did empty building.
almost one a week. And the building's abandoned.
But we have made progress. They have now fenced it,
Yes.
not only with metal fencing, but also with barbed wire. They have
And a no
gates.
trespassing
Yeah,
sign?
no trespassing, so, and they're also cleaning it out. One of the things, tell them what they're doing.
So they are, and it's funny because when I met with the owners of the building, I knew the people that had taken the copper out of the building. I knew the people that had been living in there. I knew the ones that were breaking back in. I could tell them where they were living in the building. And so what they're doing is they are gutting the entire inside of the building so that if an officer were to walk in, there would be nobody hiding in a little office. And let me tell you how scary this building was. The day we went in, it was broad daylight. It was probably right around breakfast time because Victor's was really busy. And I walked in, and it was funny, the officers were clearing the building, and the lieutenant and I were walking behind them, and it was dark. One half of that building, the back half of the building, was pitch dark, and there were offices that locked from the inside. How scary is that? And so there were people in there inebriated under the influence of things, and they were dealing drugs. I knew the guy that was dealing drugs in the building. So we need something good. So I'm done. If anybody has any questions.
Any last question? One more question.
Yes.
How long of a time would these people be in there for the sobering recovery?
Okay, so a sobering center is really, it is for the people in our community, businessmen, businesswomen in the community that find themselves intoxicated in public and maybe not committing any other crime. This is a jail diversion program. Isn't that what we call that? A jail diversion program. It's usually 4 to 6 hours. Okay, but yeah, that's days. Sobering center is literally just somebody inebriated in public. It gives you a place to sleep it off. We offer you services. If you're a frequent flyer of the sobering center, we will offer you the opportunity. You'll have caseworkers to talk to, and you'll move on to the next step if you need it. So that's what the sobering center. The detox center is usually 5 to 10 days, and you go straight from a detox center into a rehab program. So, and that would be off-site.
Okay, my question also was, I was wondering, when they're ready to be released, are they just going to walk out the door and then, okay, now where am I going to go?
Well, so a sobering center, that is going to be more of your business people and people that just drank too much and got in trouble, right? And so those people will go back to their life. Their family and their friends will come pick them up. If you are a homeless person and you are in the sobering center, we are going to surround you with services, and our goal is to take you, if you need it, upstairs to detox, and then get your rehab set up before you leave detox. So we have one detox center right now in all of Houston and the surrounding 6 or 7 counties. They have 10 beds for women and 10 beds for men.
Okay, I can see, and her concern as well as ours with the rest of the residents in that neighborhood.
Yes.
When the homeless people, when they come out and they're sober for the day, and they come out and think, well, I'm going to walk through this neighborhood. Is this going to bring more people into our area?
No.
They're not homeless.
Well,
Other than the business people, they will be homeless.
most of the time, the homeless people, they will take advantage of the sobering center. So we have a sobering center downtown, and it's been open for 3 years. They've taken through 16,000 people in 3 years. Most of them are business people. A few of the homeless people go there, but a lot of times the homeless people are committing other crimes.
Right.
So they wouldn't take them to a jail diversion program if they're committing another crime. So they would go to jail. But if a homeless person comes in there, and they're usually going to have different things, but they're already from your community. These were officers in our community that picked up a homeless person in our community. They're not bringing them in. Does that make sense?
Well, I'm just wondering if other homeless people are going to hear about the center because it's new.
There's nothing for them there. The only reason a homeless person would want to come to our center is if they want to change their life, and they could come into the detox, which is a miserable, horrible process. You got to be ready for it, only to go to rehab. There's no reason to detox if you're not going into a rehab program.
But if it does bring them in, we're going to have more homeless.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.